So Julie kind of highlighted some of this stuff in the left-hand column on the CMIP timeline, and we've kind of mapped out then knowing where the CMIP timeline is going with where we think we need to be in terms of access. So really working on model development over the next couple of years at this stage, really on the components, then into the sort of coupled space, doing model testing, evaluation and refinement as much as we can as we go. So aiming again for 2026 to really be getting those core model simulations going. And then you run into 27, 28 where you're doing those sort of community MIPS. Just noting here that I've used this term as kind of core plus MIPS. It seems like CMIP's now moved on to calling the core stuff the fast track. So that's the sort of IPCC relevant timeline stuff. So we've worked through a little bit more around this model development phase and what that means for our timing. So if we assume that CMIP 7 stuff, 4 things are going to be available for early to 2026, sort of then working back in time from getting a PI control started late 2025, doing some kind of spin up. Here I've got sort of the time it would take to do 500 years if you were doing a throughput of 3 years per day, but it would be better if we had a spin up for 1,000 years at 6 years a day, for example. But that's saying which we should probably be freezing our model around the first quarter of 2025, having done a lot of evaluation and tuning from as soon as we can get a couple of models running, hopefully early next year, so that we've got sort of prototype configurations in the middle of next year. I think as we've heard Colin talk about the UK process, really being able to get on and do 1% or 4 times CO2 runs really early in this process so that we're understanding what the climate sensitivity is doing. So this is another way of viewing how the CMIP 7 structure will look. We talked about this now being called the fast track rather than the core, but these being the sort of IPCC relevant runs, and then these community MIPS. Now, just to note that these community MIPS are now being listed on the CMIP 7 page. So as of this week, these are already registered potential MIPS for CMIP 7. I've just highlighted in here the pale blue ones are the ones that are kind of a follow-on from ones that we participated in with access for CMIP 6. And then I've also highlighted the high-res MIP. We know that there's interest in trying to push the resolution of our access model and testing it. And so thinking about whether high-res MIP is a direction we want to go in. We didn't do that, or didn't try to do it for CMIP 6. This link here is to a poster that was put together for the UK CMIP 7 workshop with some ideas around what their protocol will look like. The other point to make is that these MIPs that are being registered now are starting to be in a planning phase, and so this is a good opportunity if we want to be involved to kind of think about who from the Australian community wants to sort of champion our involvement in a particular MIP and therefore start to engage with the planning regions. So for high-res MIP, there's one later this month. Julie mentioned a bit of a pivot to more emissions-driven simulations for CMIP 7. So the scenario MIP workshop report is online. Tilo was there at the workshop, as well as I think Michael Gross was online. Others may have been involved. So yes, a recommendation to run most of the simulations in emission-driven mode, and also some stuff around modelling capabilities, particularly around land-based mitigation solutions, being quite relevant for sort of policy needs. So there have been these new DEC or core simulations under discussion around some emissions-driven cases. So this is a proposal that literally came into our email in this last week. So 3 different experiments, one where you run a 10 gigaton emissions constantly for 100 years, one where you, after 100 years, you switch to the zero emissions and run that out for another couple of 100 years, or one where you ramp down emissions and then go to an uptake or kind of more reversibility type experiment. So yes, these are now being put on the table, and the request is for groups who want to run or be involved in pilot testing of these. So coming to Australia, we had a workshop in February where we started to discuss our CMIP7 planning. Out of that, we proposed to put together a bit of a consortium with CSIRO leading and good, real indication of interest across the community of other people who might like to be involved with that. Recognising that this sort of consortium would sit alongside some of our existing collaborations across the community through NESP and obviously through the ACCESS-NRI. We have written a value proposition of why Australia needs to do CMIP7, which is being given to the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water, and had some positive feedback on that. We're now really working with them around resourcing and resourcing needs. Obviously, if we're running as a consortium, this is more complex than just having one agency do the bulk of the work. So we need to really think about how we make this work in practice. So some things around having a bit of a work plan that might be updated annually, a bit of an oversight committee, which might be more meeting less frequently, but has those sort of organisational representatives who actually have some control over the resources in their organisations. There are more sort of week by week, month by month project leadership team to really bring together the different strands of work that we need to do, and some kind of coordinator. And at the moment, I've been sort of doing that as a bit of a temporary role over the last couple of months. So we've been working also on mapping our model development pathways. Which configuration do we want to end up with? We've also had an initial meeting around model evaluation. So some of you will have seen this diagram before. We've shared it in at least a couple of the ACCESS-NRI working groups. This is trying to map out where we are now, which is sort of the two configurations, CM2 and ACCESS-ESM 1.5. So CM2 is our kind of climate-only stream, and ESM, our system model. For us at the moment, that really just means adding an interactive carbon cycle, but many of the system models would also have the interactive chemistry as well. So we've got sort of some work which is kind of looking at minor upgrades or changing of resolution around these current versions and testing those out. But this is our sort of main pathways of future work. So you heard a bit about the new OPSI stuff, the new coupler. There was a lightning talk yesterday, post around OM3, and heading for, if we want to have or if we need an Earth system model, which we knew for CMIP7, this is where we're heading, this bottom red or circled box down the bottom, ESM3. Underpinning this, we've had this model evaluation stream, recognising too a bit of a data management effort, because this is trying to sort of consolidate all of our cable 3 work across the different versions and then sort of make our CM2 and ESM 1.5 run with a consolidated cable 3. The stuff around the updated atmosphere, I think this is where, if we go pointer option, I can't do a pen option. I was going to say we need to probably cross out GAL 9 based on Colin's talk last night, but look at the parameter configuration that might come from the Met Office, or talking to Martin this morning, even taking the GA 7.1 CM2 configuration and implementing that in the most current version of the code. I'm running out of time, and I did want to at least show you a couple of results of some of this work. So a lot of work has been going into the ENSO. We're very conscious of this biennial ENSO that we had in CM2. Some possibilities that in the quarter degree it's a bit better, and also now in the 1 degree. It turns out this wasn't primarily the resolution change that has shifted this. It was a change in some of the parameters for the Gent-McWilliams scheme. We've tried changing those parameters now in the 1 degree version, and that seems to also be giving us a broader spread on that spectral peak. On the ocean, we've looked at some quarter degree runs in CM2, and this is from Matt Chamberlain, particularly pointing out some better results here in the way that the low oxygen water is drawn down, drawn towards the surface at 60 degrees, and the oxygen rich water drawn down at 50 south, which is more consistent with the observations. So the next steps, as I said, we'd like to form this sort of project leadership team. We need to do work around data planning. We need to do some more work around evaluation. So which is going to be our priority areas that we want our model to perform well in, and how we're going to maybe form up some task teams to really work around those. The model development, looking at resourcing and what options we can bring to that. Getting some ideas of what interest there is amongst our community and which MIPs to do and who wants to champion those. Contributing to those pilots of the emissions-driven deck experiments. Basically get in touch if you want to be more involved, but we will be talking in I guess there's a couple of breakouts today around the models themselves and then the evaluation of the climate timescale. Thanks.